Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. I am your host, _G Warner on Twitter, and I am broadcasting live from Austin, Texas, in a very, very cold hotel room. Here for the Köln and Stuttgart match, also a good friend of mine's wedding. Perfect timing to be in the same place for two clubs coming from Germany because I just can't get enough German football. Well, this episode is going to be on match day 1 of the World Cup. We're going to go through each match and try to make some picks, some best bets, as many as I can think of. I don't think I'll have an ultimate. I'll probably have one ultimate best bet because that seems to be what everyone wants to hear. But I'll outline kind of everyone I'm interested in. It might be a little bit quicker of an episode than usual, but I got to get a tux ready to go. And there's probably a lot of lifting that has to be done to make that happen. Anything you guys want, thank you for listening on YouTube. Please hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please subscribe, leave a 5-star review. All that sort of stuff helps me get up the totem pole. I've got a lot of listens to the World Cup Futures preparation episode. I'm hoping to get a similar amount of adoption for each of these original, or I guess, match day episodes. And just looking forward to putting as much out there as possible. As I said, the more feedback I get from the listeners, the more I'm willing to do. And hopefully the more recordings and winners that will come out of these things. All lines quoted on this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juice is offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account and use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. Without further ado, we'll get to the opener and I'll try to leave politics aside, but in the blood money, oil money, bribery World Cup that's in the winter and throwing off club seasons and everything in this world, which is insane, but it's where we are in 2022. So Qatar are the host nation. I'm not really sure what to expect from their crowd, I gotta say. If this was in Germany, for example, I would expect big home field advantage, home pitch advantage, home court advantage for Germany, for example. It was huge in Russia as well because they were doping allegedly, or maybe not even allegedly. I don't think Qatar has that ability, but Qatar ultimately, they just banned alcohol sales. So who knows what type of impact that will have. I know a lot of people are not attending that would normally attend because they don't agree with the practices in this country, freedoms for individuals, homosexuals, LGBTQI+, all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to try to just get to the game here. And it's Qatar. They are quarter goal underdog with all the juice right now, hosting Ecuador. Ecuador, they had a pretty good CONMEBOL campaign, were ultimately a very defensive side that sat back and hit you on the counterattack. It worked really well for a team that wasn't really expected to qualify for the World Cup, but they got in over Colombia. Was a really big surprise on their team. I think Chile was also expected to qualify, at least before Ecuador was expected to get there. It's an interesting match considering Ecuador are essentially on the road here, though I don't know that road matches or that Qatar's home advantage is much at all. At least I'm not rating it that way just yet. Ecuador, as a favorite, it's kind of a weird position to be in because are they going to change their style and try to be on the front foot? Because that's not what got them here. Certainly Qatar are a much weaker opponent than the rest of the CONMEBOL South American nations. But I'm not really sure what to expect from this one. I lean to Qatar at home ultimately as the underdog. It's very juiced right now and might fall to pick them by the time this one kicks off. I do think Ecuador are a lot more talented than Qatar, who ultimately have a bunch of players that play locally. They pay a lot of money in Qatar because they have a ton of it because of oil and other things, but I don't think it's a very strong league, and I don't think Qatar really should be in this tournament, except for the fact that they basically bought a place into it. Moving to Monday, we have the first match is England hosting Iran. England, a 1.25 goal favorite. Juices split right down the middle there. England are the big favorites in Group B. They should be the team that wins it. It shouldn't be really that hard for them, but they've had a really tough run, and their manager, Gareth Southgate, whatever type of Southgate he is, he's kind of running that team south ultimately. They don't play very good football. based on the talent they have, they should be on the front foot trying to exploit their advantages, but they play very defensively. They try to win a lot of matches 1-0. They get that early lead and they sit back and try to defend their way out. It's not that big of a deal in the group stage where they should clearly advance, as they're by far the highest ranked nation in Group B. But ultimately, it's a problem when you're trying to cover big spreads, and a lot of times a problem in the knockout rounds. Iran, on the other hand, they don't have a ton of top tier European League talent. They do have the striker for FC Porto, who plays every match 90 minutes if he's not getting a red card for diving on a second yellow. And Mehdi Taremi is a really good player. My question is, how many opportunities is he going to get from the rest of his club? I mean, I don't think there are any Iranians on the Porto side. They have a couple other Iranians playing in Holland and in other places, but not really big impact players on a big level. And you could argue that the Portuguese Liga is not as strong as the other big five, where England has players playing mainly in England, but everywhere essentially. With the state of England and their conservative game plan, which has been conservative no matter what type of opponent they're playing, I expect that to be the same here. So I lean to Iran getting 1.25 goals. In terms of over-under, I do feel like England does have the ability to puncture an Iranian side that doesn't really have a lot of defending talent. Carlos Queiroz has shown that he's going to put 10 men behind the ball and try to spring counterattacks. I don't know that Mehdi Taremi is the speed merchant that will really work well for, but he is a great clinical finisher and is someone to worry about. I lean to Iran getting 1.25. I guess with that lean, I like under 2.25 for the total, but I'm not sure that I'm feeling that strongly about it. Senegal then hosts Netherlands, or I guess not hosts. It's neutral for everyone else at Qatar. I'm trying to get that out of my lexicon going through all these, but Senegal +1, neutral site versus the Netherlands. Senegal, of course, losing Mane is a really big deal. He was their do everything player. They won Africa Cup of Nations. A lot because of Sadio Mane. And so he's going to be really, really difficult to replace. And unfortunately, while the injury might have kept him out at the end of the season, if this was a Summer World Cup, I do feel like the timing of this World Cup is horrible. And it's really going to test the depth of a lot of these nations, making the bigger countries even that bigger of favorites potentially. The full goal of insurance is really nice. And Senegal are not just a Sadio Mane team. They have a lot more to them. But the problem is, how are they going to score goals? Because the Netherlands, one thing I think we can trust about the Netherlands is they're going to score. And that makes me really worried that this is going to be a kind of a track meet or a race. And I don't really know that is something that Senegal will win. Netherlands have some defensive issues, but they're probably going to score a bunch of goals. So at this point, I think if you're backing Senegal plus that 1 goal, you're trying to, I think you're assuming they score, and B, if they don't score, they need to only allow a single goal or you're losing. So it's going to be tough. I mean, they do have a decent defensive structure, and I think that it's what led them to the championship in the Africa Cup of Nations. But ultimately, defense is pretty sparse and pretty weak in the African nations, at least from what I've seen. They're starting Edouard Mendy, who has basically lost his job at Chelsea. And a lot of players that aren't doing great. Kalidou Koulibaly is not playing a ton for Chelsea either and looked really bad the last time he was counted upon. So I don't know necessarily what to think about this one, other than the Netherlands might have a really good start and look like a really big favorite in this group, Group A, the group with Ecuador and Qatar. Next we'll move USA and Wales. Currently United States, they're a 1/4 goal favorite at BetOnline, but the Wales are very, very juiced right now. So I think this one will close pick'em, but I just don't trust the United States. Their inability to score against CONCACAF was really glaring. And I feel like against a team like Wales, who are going to sit and play defensively, but then have the incredible talent of Gareth Bale, who plays really, really well for his nation, just looks like the player that he has never been for club. But for country, he is. And they have a giant in Kiefer Moore, who's going to cause a lot of problems, I think, in the interior for Zimmerman and whoever else is playing with him at center back for the United States. I'm not sure that he's someone you can trust to score a lot of goals, but he's very scary on corner kicks, on set pieces, and things of that nature. I do think Gareth Bale will try to score every set piece that he can, but I do think corner kicks and things, free kicks from very far away, are potentially going in the box towards the 6'5" head of Kiefer Moore, and that's a scary thing. I also think Aaron Ramsey's been playing really well for Nice, kind of a little bit under the radar, but all things pointing in the direction of Wales to me, where the United States are ultimately a team that have a lot of hype and a lot of talent, allegedly on young players, but they aren't playing in their teams. Christian Pulisic barely plays for Chelsea. Gio Reyna has been hurt for so much, but really doesn't seem like a starting option that they really want for Borussia Dortmund. And you can say really only Tyler Adams, a defensive midfielder, and Brendan Aronson, attacking midfielder. Those are the two that are biggest players, I think, for this United States team. They don't get the name recognition that they should. I think Aronson is especially underrated. But I think this is a very good chance that there's a very low scoring matchup here. Over under is 2. I'd lean under on that one. I don't really know how we're getting a third goal. But ultimately that first goal is going to decide how this one goes. And that might be the only one in this match. It probably falls to the United States more likely based on they're going to play a front-footed style and have more shots most likely. But I do worry that also sets them up for counterattacks against Wales. I don't necessarily see Wales' speed as a big concern, but Gareth Bale certainly is. He's the most accomplished player on this pitch. So I lean to Wales getting a quarter of a goal, very juiced at the moment, but also to under 2 on, I guess, a Monday late night kickoff in Qatar. Moving to Tuesday, when the early matches really start, 4 a.m. local time in Texas, is going to be an incredible month of me with absolutely no sleep, as if I get any as it is. You'll see podcasts coming out on college basketball, also pregame.com through college basketball, but also European soccer pods. There's a lot coming out. My own feed, Betting the Pitch, you'll be getting a lot. So you can avoid your family as much as you'd like. Of course, not advocating that. But moving to Tuesday, Argentina and Saudi Arabia. Argentina, a 2-goal favorite. And Saudi Arabia might be the worst team in this competition that's not named Qatar. They had to qualify and they got in through Asia, which is, I mean, not for nothing. You'll hear probably my thoughts on the rest of the Asian teams. It's a really talented and a lot better, I think, than anyone gives it credit for. But they're playing Lionel Messi and a team full of Argentinian strikers, essentially. They play different positions. There's definitely wingers, central midfielders, attacking midfielders, defensive midfielders, but they all are really great at scoring the football. And that's going to be a big problem for Saudi Arabia, who are going to be defensive, might not even get a shot in this matchup because they're so scared of trying to sit in their own end and not give Argentina space. I do think the Argentina defense is potentially problematic for later in the tournament. I don't think Saudi Arabia are a team that can really exploit that, though. And I don't really know what number it would take for me to want to be interested in Saudi Arabia, but at +2, even a push on a 2-goal loss, I still think this one could get pretty ugly. And that also makes me think over 2 3/4 is probably more interesting to me than anything. Denmark then hosts Tunisia. Currently Denmark a 1-goal favorite with all the juice. And Tunisia is not bad. I think they're more talented than a lot of the name would suggest, but I think the Danes are one of the strongest teams in this tournament. I picked them to win their group to overcome France. We'll get to in a little bit because they're playing the night game. But also, I think there's some interest from, at least I'm holding some. I haven't played anything with it yet, but in Denmark to win the World Cup. I think if they can win the group, they're going to be on the right side of the bracket and face a much easier run that could avoid both Brazil and Argentina, which would be monstrous. And with that, I think it's worth taking a shot at such a high number, potentially on the easier side of the bracket. But for this matchup, I think Denmark, my question for them is how much can they score? I believe in their defense. I think Christian Eriksen at center attacking midfielder is the glue that they really needed. They lost during the Euros, and that's really what kind of stunted their growth. But they still went on a pretty deep run, despite having a player essentially die on the field next to them. Simon Kjær coming back from injury, has been playing for AC Milan lately, is huge. Kasper Schmeichel seems to play a lot better for the country. And I really think this is a cohesive team that has a lot of kind of unknown players that are actually really talented. Jonas Wind coming from VfL Wolfsburg. He's a great player, and there's a lot of other kind of lesser known talents that have kind of not really surfaced in the big European leagues, but I think they play really well together. They have a system in place, and they seem to like each other, which I'll speak to more in a second. I don't know that I do like the full goal of insurance on Tunisia. I think I want more than that, and it looks like we might even get 1.25 before this kicks off. But nothing for me just yet on Tunisia, because I think the Danes are one of the best teams in this competition. Next, we'll move Mexico, Poland, and this one is probably a deciding factor of who moves through the group with Argentina. currently at Pick'em with juice completely split. This is essentially a rubber match is what they're calling this, or this is the loser leaves home match. Because if there is a loser here, they're going to have to probably beat Argentina in order to survive. Because I don't know that Saudi Arabia are going to get a point in this competition. That also might determine who gets through. Is who Saudi Arabia could draw. Anyway, Jans are back. Welcome to Betting the Pitch. Mexico haven't been able to score goals either against CONCACAF. Same sort of thing I was saying about the U.S. I don't know necessarily that the CONCACAF defense is that strong. I think it's that the attacks are so weak. And you just don't see a lot of Mexicans across the top European leagues anymore. Irving Lozano Chucky is playing for Napoli, but in a backup role at best, or filling in for injured players or suspensions. There's not a lot more. Raul Jimenez has not been on attacking or scoring at all really since he fractured his skull, cracked his skull, brutal injury. But and that's a problem. Whereas Poland on the other side have Robert Lewandowski, and he doesn't have a lot necessarily with him. Though I think there's some youth that's coming up through Poland that's a lot better than what he had previously. But we know Louis can score, and he can score goals from really tough positions where you wouldn't expect the ball to go in the net. And I think that makes me lean to Poland and lean to Poland advancing in this group. I think there's a big chasm between these two teams in Argentina, but also a chasm between these two and Saudi Arabia. I'm trying to think if there's a lean on the total. 2 seems pretty low, but I think based on Mexico's inability to score and their strength, they've been great in this competition for many years. They can always get through the group stage, so it's weird to go against them saying that they won't make it based on history. But I do feel like there's a big uptick in Poland potentially here, and Mexico's been sliding in the wrong direction for a while now. So I lean to Poland. Hope that some money comes in on Mexico and pushes Poland to an underdog, but I don't expect that will happen before kickoff on Tuesday. France and Australia. There's no host here. But France are a 1 3/4 goal favorite to Australia. Australia with all the juice, kind of surprisingly. I wouldn't take any positions on Australia. I feel like the market is going to bet France over and over again right until this match kicks off on Tuesday evening in Qatar. France are the most talented team besides Brazil in this competition, I believe. I think Argentina are third. I think it's a 1A, 1B situation. But France has a lot of chemistry issues. They always seem to, and it can completely derail their camp and their team performances. I haven't heard a lot about that yet. I almost feel like it's better risk to keep all the French strikers and everyone separated as much as you possibly can until the games play. I know that's not realistic, but just to keep the spats as far away as possible. So I do think that really impacted their European Cup performance, Euro 2020, played in 2021. Australia, I was very surprised that they got into this tournament, qualified their way in that playoff. I think they knocked out Peru. That was a big surprise, and it was really nothing that they did. They won, I think, in penalties and really hadn't shown anything besides that. France can probably murder this team. So I want no part of Australia. And I don't think that makes me feel anything towards under 2 3/4, because Australia are going to try to play defense the whole time. But at a certain point, I guess they do worry about goal differential as a tiebreaker, but ultimately France are so much better. I don't think there's any more reason to talk about this one. Next, we'll go Morocco and Croatia. Currently, Croatia, the 1/4 goal favorite, with all the juice potentially climbing to 1/2 goal. Over under is 2. Croatia, I think, are really good. I saw them live in Vienna in September in a pretty important match that got them a victory over Austria on the road. Lots of Croats in Austria, so apparently it was like a 50-50 crowd at best, if not 60% Croatians. But Morocco, they have a lot of talent in their team. I just go back to questioning the defensive ability of the African nations. And I think Croatia are a perfect team to exploit that. Croatia doesn't have a ton up front and striking talent, in my humble opinion. Kramaric is great, but I feel like he's had a really poor year, looking a little bit older, maybe hiding an injury or something like that. Luka Modric, certainly old, but is awesome, incredible. And Ivan Perisic, also old, but still awesome, still incredible. I really like Croatia in this group. I think that they are, I'm a little bit surprised that this has fallen down to a 1/4 of a goal favorite. I think it will close a 1/2. I think there's a pretty significant difference between the Croatia attack and Morocco. And I think that Morocco is going to really struggle. There is talent in the Morocco side for sure. I'm not discounting that. But I don't think I want to be against Croatia, especially not at this price, until we get a half at the very least. And even then, I don't think that's even enough for me, because I think there's a pretty big gap between these two teams. Lean to over, if anything. It's a juiced over 2 right now, but don't feel strongly on that one. Germany and Japan. Germany, a 1-goal favorite with all the juice right now. I'm expecting this one to climb because it feels pretty short to me, but I think it speaks to the expectations for Japan in this tournament and why that 1.25 is not available just yet. You can probably find it elsewhere on some other casinos. I don't know that the American versions are really giving too much, besides probably 1/2 and +1 and +1.5. Those are probably all they're offering, because I don't think they really play in the Asian handicaps at this point. But I love Japan. I think that they have shown in this tournament that they can be as obstinate as you would expect an Asian nation to be. And they are really disciplined. They're really good at, they don't have a lot of in the striking department, but honestly, Germany, despite all their talent, really don't either. And that's why Niklas Füllkrug got called up to the German national team kind of out of nowhere, because he was so hot, scoring a lot of goals in the Bundesliga. I don't think that that's going to be a worthwhile call up for them. I mean, potentially as a header of the ball in the 86th minute, that might be a good option. That's certainly what's worked for Werder Bremen this season. But that's something you wouldn't expect to be high XG or really predictive for the future. I think Japan is going to muck this game up and make it really hard on Germany. And I also think they have a little bit more creativity in their midfield than you would expect. Daiki Kamada is an awesome player, and I'm currently trying to think about how to bet him to either score goals or to lead Japan in goal scoring. Very interested in that. Don't think I'm going to do a prop episode, but maybe tomorrow, if there's some time, I might do that on Saturday. But anyway, I love Japan +1. I think under 2.75 is also very in play / worth looking into. I don't know that I necessarily believe that that's stronger than Japan +1, because I do like the full goal of insurance. I don't know that Japan win a 2-1 match, though, I got to say. So I think this is going to be a very low scoring match. So lean to under, lean to the underdog. But looking for Japan to hit 1.25 before locking it in. I expect that we'll get that before kickoff, but also getting juice or getting odds on +1 is also a pretty nice bet. Though unfortunately, when you push, you don't get any of those odds that you saved. Spain then play Costa Rica. Spain, a 2-goal favorite. I guess the slight favorite in this group to advance or to win the group over Germany, but both of those pretty big favorites to advance. Spain is a 2-goal favorite. Doesn't feel right to me. Their offense is really not strong either. Alvaro Morata favored to be their highest goal scorer just speaks to, I think, the limits that Spain have in their attacking front. But this is not new to Spain. They've had real trouble scoring for a long time now. Costa Rica, on the other hand, they have a great goalkeeper in Keylor Navas, who hasn't been playing, but he is really strong, really talented, and will probably nullify a few Spanish chances. But Spain's going to have 75% of the ball, I think, at least. And that's a big problem for Costa Rica, because that means a lot of shots and chances will come from it. We'll see how many Spain can finish. I don't believe they will be clinical in this matchup. But I do worry that Costa Rica are going to be exhausted having to defend in their own 18-yard box basically the whole match. Under 2.75 is probably the strongest lean I have in this one. The 2 goals that Costa Rica are getting are nice, but you even get a little extra candy because Costa Rica are probably not going to score in this one. I would expect a Spanish clean sheet and for their defense not to really face much, but it's really just about covering from cannon fire the whole time from Spain and see how many times you can prevent Spain from finding the back of the net. Next, we have Belgium and Canada. Belgium, a 1-goal favorite, an all offense team. Not really a lot of defense. Unfortunately, their defense is aged, old, decrepit, if you will. Their offense is really talented, a little bit younger than an old, aged, and decrepit defense, but still not very young. Do have some youth that probably comes in off the bench, and they have Kevin De Bruyne, who is one of the scariest players to bet against in the world. Incredible free kick taker, assister. But Romelu Lukaku hasn't been good for a year and a half now, it feels like. So that does worry me about the ceiling that Belgium can hit in this tournament. And Canada, I got to say, in the CONCACAF, where they were not expected to do anything, they won the whole qualifying, which maybe speaks to the deficiencies in the US and Mexico. But from my point of view, it really just installs a belief in a manager who kind of knows what he's doing, to be pragmatic, And I expect that they will try to nullify Belgium and use their pace with Alphonso Davies and Tavon Buchanan. I don't know if those two will play together, potentially one at fullback or a left wing back and then the other at left midfield or left wing. That is how I would design it if I could. I don't know if they'll switch sides and play both of them at the same time in that same fullback position that they want to be in. But Jonathan David has also been so hot up front, striking position. He doesn't take penalties, it doesn't look like, unless that's changed. So I do worry about anyone looking at his props for over as a goal scorer over a certain one goal or over 1.5 goals. I do think he's going to get on the score sheet. I don't know how much, and I don't know how many matches Canada will play, which will impact that ticket. But I do like Canada getting a full goal from Belgium. I worry that Belgium can get more than one here, though, and then that kind of makes the complicated. Do I take +1? Do I take under 2 3/4, which I like also, because I think Canada are going to really restrict Belgium. Belgium do have the ability to go for a lot of goals in matches, though. However, so I'm a little nervous on that under 2 3/4. Also nervous on +1 on Canada. Moving to Thursday, we have Switzerland and Cameroon. And this is a big matchup for Switzerland. They need to get 3 points here so that they can put pressure on Serbia, because that's really who they're going to be competing against, besides Cameroon, I think, to finish second to Brazil. Cameroon have some talent, but speak to like a broken record. I'm still worried about the African defense. The Swiss are likely without Jan Sommer, goalkeeper, and that does bring some concern, because I know Jonas Omlin, their backup, is also a little bit banged up. So it sounds like this might be a Gregor Kobel situation, who is a decent keeper, but has had some problems. Maybe that's a Dortmund thing. He was really good, I thought, for VfB Stuttgart, who I'm going to see tomorrow live, hopefully, if the rain doesn't hit too hard. But Switzerland, seeing them as a 3/4 goal favorite seems pretty large to me. Their goal scoring is a question for me. Bril Ombolo has been great for Monaco this season, but the creativity worries me in the midfield when they're relying on Granit Xhaka, who's really a defensive midfielder, in my humble opinion. They do have more talent, I think, than Cameroon, and a better defense, and that probably separates this one. There's a little more juice on Cameroon right now. I think at +1, I'm very interested there. But I don't see a ton of goals in this matchup, so under 2 1/4 feels decent as well. Uruguay then face off against South Korea. Uruguay a 3/4 goal favorite. South Korea with all the juice right now. Maybe this falls to a half. I don't think these teams are that different, but the Uruguay name is so much more powerful than South Korea. The questions about Heung-min Son and his availability also are out there, and I think until you see him in a starting lineup, it's hard to trust any prognostication about what his availability will look like. South Korea, I think in the Japan mode, they're going to play really defensively, try to restrict space. But with Sonny, they do have that counterattacking blazing speed that Japan doesn't really have. And that might make South Korea a more likely team to advance. They're also way more likely because they don't have Germany and Spain in their group. But this is going to be a tough matchup, and this might determine who gets through. Because I think Brazil are going to be far away number one, likely winning all their matches. South Korea are disciplined, and I really like them. I think I certainly lean to them getting 3/4 of a goal. I think as it drifts to half a goal, I'm still interested a little bit less. I guess I like under 2, but I feel like Uruguay, their strengths are in offense, and they might be able to score here. So I think if you're going to feel most comfortable backing South Korea, it's probably when you think they score. So you probably want to take that 3/4 rather than that under 2. Next, we have Portugal and Ghana. Portugal, a 1 1/4 goal favorite, with almost all the juice on Ghana, actually. Portugal's offense is not really the strongest thing out there, but I believe in their long-term chances in this event. I think they got a pretty easy group. They start off well with Ghana in a match where Ghana, in the African qualifying, played really defensively, like sat all behind the ball against the Ivory Coast and Nigeria, who they knocked out in back-to-back rounds. Just like pretty incredible that they made this tournament, because they had a really, really tough run. But I don't know that Thomas Partey is enough to really carry them. And I worry that there's plenty of talented players there that play all over Europe, but I don't know that they're cohesive enough to face a Portuguese team that is from a small nation with not a lot of diameter, but they are really strong. They have kind of moved past the Cristiano Ronaldo days, though he should be fresh for this tournament and likely plays a big role. But I feel like Bruno Fernandes and Cristiano Ronaldo play a lot better with the national team than they do with Manchester United. And I feel like I don't really want to get in the way of them. I do like the idea of going against them as a favorite, but I want a better defense than Ghana. Brazil then face Serbia, the nightcap. Brazil, a 1.25 goal favorite. I really like the Serbians. I'm pretty disappointed in their performance. I think 2 World Cups ago, where they're in the same group with Switzerland, and Xherdan Shaqiri and Granit Xhaka both scored and did the Albanian eagle sign, which is a big deal. Got them fined, got a lot of people big mad, because I guess that's a real political statement, but they had their reasons with their families being tortured in camps and things of that nature. At least that's what the reports were. Brazil are really scary to play against. I don't know that I want to fade them with anybody besides the top cream of the crop. Argentina potentially, maybe like Denmark if they're getting a big number, but I don't know how big that number would be, as it could potentially be in the finals. I think, or at least late in the knockouts. I think Serbia, this is a match where they're trying to get a point from it. Makes me think they're going to let Brazil pick them apart a little bit more than I'd want them to, though I don't know that Serbia in open play really has much of a chance against Brazil either. It might be a situation, though, Serbia may not even bow down to Brazil because it's a pretty proud country. And that makes me worried that even getting more than a goal, it doesn't feel like a lot of insurance against the Jogo Bonito. And I feel like Brazil are a team I really don't want to lose money fading this tournament. So even that 1.25, I'm not sure I want. I guess to that pride of Serbian pride, and potentially being on the front foot more than they should be, I guess I lean over 2.75, if anything. I'll go through actually at the end of this episode and make a pick for each match, just so in case you guys want to run through it, because I know no one wants to work. And then that, I think we'll do it actually, because we're getting into match day 2 lines, which I'll save for the next podcast, likely next week, for my grandma's in Connecticut, hopefully with a working heater. So to go from the top, and I'll make a pick on each match, Qatar and Ecuador. Qatar getting a quarter. I'll go under 2 in that one. And I'll also remind a best bet end of show, which is rapidly approaching. England and Iran. I like, it's between Iran plus 1.25 or under 2.25. I don't think England score a lot of goals, and I don't like their temperament when they have a lead. So I think it's more likely that we'll see under 2.25 come through than an Iran bet. Senegal and Netherlands. Senegal plus 1, over under is 2.25. I worry about the Senegal defense, I got to say, and I do think that they can puncture Netherlands. So I'll go over 2.25 on that one. The US and Wales. I'm going to play, well, it's Wales plus 1/4 and under 2. I'm going to go under 2 in this one right now. I don't know that Wales are more likely to win this matchup. So I'll play under 2, and I like the push option there on a 1-0 either way. Excuse me, the win option on 1-0 either way, and the push on 1-1. For Tuesday, well, Argentina -2 to Saudi Arabia. Over under is 2.75. I don't think that Saudi Arabia can defend enough, so I'm going to go over 2.75. Denmark, a 1-goal favorite to Tunisia. Over under is 2.25. I'm going to go under 2.25 there, because I think a 2-0 victory for Denmark is fairly likely and would make Tunisia a loser, but that under a half a bet winner. Mexico and Poland, not much for me to do at Pick'em, I got to say. Over under is 2, not much there either. Man, I'm going to go Poland at Pick'em, though I feel like there's a pretty good chance this is a draw. That'll make everything more dramatic down the stretch. France and Australia. France a 1.75 goal favorite. Over under is 2.75. I don't think Australia has a prayer here, really. And I don't think they contribute to the scoring. So I'll go France -1.75, even money right now. Morocco and Croatia. Morocco a 1/4 goal underdog. All the juice on Croatia that might climb to a half, but we're using current lines, courtesy of Bet Online. So I'm going to go, and then over under is 2. I'll go over 2 in that one. Might push there, though. Germany and Japan. Japan a 1-goal underdog. Over under is 2.75. I'll play under 2.75 because I think Japan will stifle Germany, and I don't really see them scoring. Spain and Croatia. Spain a 2-goal favorite. Over under is 2.75, and I'm going to go under 2.75 because I think Costa Rica are going to make it really hard on Spain. They're going to take 30 shots probably, but I don't see Costa Rica being able to score. So I think the under 2.75 has a little more value. Belgium, a 1-goal favorite to Canada. Over under is 2.75. I like under 2.75 here. I think Canada are a pretty live dog here, though, as well. So I like that one, too. But I think there's a lot more room in 2.75. And I don't know that Belgium are going to score 3 themselves. So 2-0 will certainly be a loss on the Canadian side, but a win on the total. And that does interest me quite a bit. Switzerland and Cameroon. Cameroon, a 3/4 goal underdog. Over under is 2.25. And I like Cameroon getting that 3/4. I think there's some questions for me, at least, about Switzerland scoring and their defense with their goalkeeper situation. Uruguay and South Korea. Currently, Uruguay, a 3/4 goal favorite. Over under is 2. And I like South Korea getting 3/4 of a goal. I think that they're going to be really competitive. I also lean to that under 2, as I think the Uruguay front line, which really did a lot of playing with one of Edinson Cavani and Luis Suarez, not playing them together. I don't think their best lineup is playing them both simultaneously, but that might be what is employed in this competition. Darwin Nunez certainly has something to say about that. I guess I'll go under 2 as my biggest interest right now in that Uruguay-South Korea match. Portugal and Ghana. We have Ghana, a 1.25 goal underdog. And over under is 2.25. I'll go under 2.25, as I think Ghana are going to play really defensively here. And Portugal, I think there's questions that need to be answered about their offense. Brazil and Serbia to round it all out. We have Serbia getting 1.25 goals. Over under is 2.75. I'm going to go over 2.75. I think there's some goals in this matchup. And now we've come to the end of the show. You can follow me on Twitter, @the_real_G Warner. But hang on, the ultimate best bet is coming. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please, or Spotify, please subscribe, give 5 stars. Really appreciate that. And you'll be right aware of when this episode drops, the next one for match day 2, or potentially a props episode tomorrow, if that's what you're looking for. Might be able to have time to do that. We'll see how wedding commitments go and really how the Cologne-Stuttgart match and leaves me hanging afterwards. And then I guess if you're on YouTube, subscribe there. Still have a long way to go to get to 1,000 followers. But I think once that happens, your boy's going to invest in some better, more stellar electronic video equipment. And we'll see what happens with that. But without further ado, it's time for the best bet for match day 1 of the Copa Mundial, the World Cup, Qatar 2022. And I think I have it narrowed down right now to Japan under 2.75 against Germany. And I also really like Wales getting 1/4 goal from the US, but I guess lean to that under 2 even more. I'm going to go Japan under 2.75. It's partly a bet on Japan as well, because that's essentially betting their defense, betting against the Germany offense, and maybe betting that Japan's offense doesn't get out there to score a bunch. So I'll go under 2.75 is my best bet for this episode. Thanks for watching. Again, you can follow me and interact with me on Twitter, @the_real_G Warner. And I look forward to talking to you all soon.